Welcome, everyone. For those of you who believe that we have some issues with trust with one another, let me introduce you to A Case of Distrust.
Oh, this is not a controller game. Okay.
Already, we've met with our first instance of distrust.
This is slow.
Distrusting yourself. Distrusting your own ability to control everything.
Size. Okay, good. Yes, erase it all.
Do it.
Do it.
What are you?
Don't be a little
coward?
Little bitch. Welcome, everyone, to A Case of Distrust.
Ooh. Watch as we unravel our sense of trust in one another.
I awoke. Sorry, hold on, gotta get on. I awoke in my desk chair. Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there.
But not as surprising as those legs that went on for miles. I knew there was nothing but trouble.
I stretched and said mid-yawn, "Not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment. I have a very deep voice for a woman." But his stare just continued. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's shrewd thugs, hardened cops, and deadly politicians, but none could ever match that gaze.
I may be a politician, cop, gangster.
Bullshit. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open.
Give me the knife! Give me the knife!
Crab got my knife. I gave him the knife.
What is this terrible monster?
I gave him the knife, sliding it across the desk. "Look," I said. "That's all there is. Take it or leave it." But a detective knows when she's beat, and I knew then. He wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type.
All right. Wait, that's you.
I said, "Let's look."
Let's look.
Yeah. He let out a gleeful
meow.
There you go, that's you. In victory. Cat got my knife. I picked up the knife and cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner, I jabbed. But I was smiling, too, because I was telling the truth. There's absolutely no other food in my apartment. Meow. Except for the cat. The cat was the emergency food supply.
Feed me, you fuck!
I'll eat you soon. The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. Right now, the place was clean empty. No food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. Boop.
I'm food.
The cat had walked into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. He'd continue his loud meowing until I proved to him that the place was empty of food. Talk to cat. Whoop, whoop. Doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. We've got no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. Very noisily. I needed to contradict him somehow to show him something in my apartment that would prove it was empty food. Contradict. There were no cases just then, but the cat was mewing, needed attention. I had to contradict the cat by first talking to him, then pointing to a piece of evidence in my notebook that proved the apartment was empty of food.
I could be proven if, you pet me.
No, you, cat! Contradict.
I'm just saying, you will never match the mystery of a cat.
I just need a counterspell. I went back to the apartment to search for clues. This is a tough cat.
You will never find clues that will dissuade me. I know you are food.
That lamp belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He'd been an SFPD officer, one who'd argued policewomen could be good detectives even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd been right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. I thought about Lewis.
Is an SFPD officer a type of treat? I would be willing to eat that.
Shut up, cat. That lamp... I thought about Lewis more often than I wanted. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind these thoughts. My emotions!
Perhaps there is a bird down there?
Maltese falcon? Kept a small statue underneath the side table. It's been police evidence in a crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on the way out of the department.
Is it made of Maltese?
Maybe I can
Is Maltese
call
the kind of thing you eat? I've heard you eating Maltesers.
My old notebook is now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down. Never knew what would be useful. First half had my old cases. Details from my beats I used to walk in my policewoman days. Of course, policewomen were forbidden from going on patrol, but Lewis often overlooked that rule.
Apparently, it's part of his standard. Oh, you better read the second part.
Wait, what's this? Okay, here we go. A newspaper was flopped on the floor. Its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace sweeping Russia. It seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their head.
Okay, now we know the year.
Oh, stack of papers. I had taken copies of old murder cases for SFPD records when I'd left. I loved reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. Like that one. This one right here. It's a guy chopped off his body and chopped off the body and cut off the head and then put it in a blender.
Did you contribute to that?
That cracks me up. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. Even with this voice.
I developed this voice to seem tougher on the force.
Yeah.
Treated me like one of the guys.
Here we go. The regular white icebox, tinged with yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stocked in it, and right now it's empty. So is that evidence?
Check the
Is that in my notes now?
Ooh, that might be in your notes.
Notes.
Evidence. Icebox. There you go.
Icebox. Oh yeah, so now that I've explored it, it's in
But
my
first
evidence.
you should read
Now I
the
can
other half of your
contradict-
cases. It's possible that there is food in there.
I think I can... Yeah, once I select something, I can't select it again.
Oh, well that is unfortunate.
So right now, fuck you, cat. I'm gonna contradict your ass.
You can never contradict me,
Oh,
for
yeah?
I am never
Oh.
wrong.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah? Watch this, cat. Fucking cat. Contradict.
This is my... If I am proven wrong,
I'm gonna put
it
the
is
private
just
dick in
me
contradict.
choosing to
Icebox.
acknowledge your weakness.
Use. Boom. I opened the icebox. The cat could see inside. Empty, I told him. Are you happy now?
I have a cool breeze on me.
The cat looked quizzically at the open door, then back at me. Sorry, fella. There's no grub in there for me either.
Then I guess you'll do.
He stared at me with eyes. I was disappointed. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed me. This big yellow's voice got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. My parents. My parents were still in Chicago, where they moved our family in my final year of
You
schooling.
know, with your reminiscing,
I'd returned
you
to California, but they maintained that there were better job prospects for my father in Chicago.
You could be looking for more food.
Now
in
I'm
the
thinking about
trash
his new
can.
digs. His new gigs were never permanent. Odd jobs from his brother's contacts. He'd been a painter, a mover, a dockhand, and whatever other professions required cheap labor for a few questions. But then, a drunk really kept much work for long.
I think a drunk would make enough money to feed me.
My sister refused. You're not even my cat! My sister refused any financial aid until my father quit his addiction. Stubbornness and pride caused both sides much grief, and they were no longer on speaking terms. My parents were much worse for it, though. Most of their money came from my late grandmother's trust, but those funds were barely a trickle.
Cats
I've
are
dreamed of saving enough to help them.
Cats are never owned by anyone.
I'm not
silly.
thinking about you, cat. My mind spiraled into the usual series of questions. Had I even impacted the women's movement? Had I made any change on society at all? Was my plodding career worth losing traditional happiness?
But you love me anyways.
What was the point in the life I had chosen? And what the fuck is this cat still doing here? Loud meow from the cat snapped my thoughts back to the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned back at him.
Aren't you glad I'm here
Guess
to pull
you
you out of your
scram
cell?
now, I said. Nobody's gonna come knocking with food for you, fella. Oop. Someone with food for you, fella. There immediately came a banging on the front door. Beyond a nuisance, this cat was psychic too. Psychic cat. You order out? I asked him. Yeah, just some Chinese. Open the door.
Oh, I love the transitions. Holy crap.
Yeah, this game's very stylish. In the doorway was the regrettably familiar face of
Connor
Green.
Green.
Because he was green. His company churned my stomach. Might have been his bergamot perfume, which hung around my nostrils like a lingering unwanted guest, or that sordid smile, which was forever plastered on his face.
Not my fault you don't have an acquired taste.
He stared at me through the doorway with a coarse smile.
Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside?
I started closing the door. But he stuck out a foot to stop me.
Hey now!
He chided.
Foul way to treat a customer, Maloney!
Oh, so the main character is the band, Post Malone. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wondered what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt.
I'll make this quick. I can't take this to Hog House, or the pigs will laugh me out. And other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin widened. Wait.
I thought this was going to be quick, I said.
Oh.
I started rolling a cigarette. Like your sexual prowess.
It wasn't quick.
It wasn't quick, and I'd already rolled and lighted a second smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It had started with a letter slipped under his door in a white envelope. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which he handed to me. It read, "End your game." Oh, you did.
End your game, or we'll end you.
The wizard from Fantasy World. It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right corner that resembled a black hand. Green had a lead on a new rum-running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon speakeasy for mob boss Jerry Ferry. They'd agreed, brother of Guy Fieri. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running.
Guy Fieri gave it a good review on Yelp.
He suspected Redstone Stable, another bootlegger, of sending the letter. He told me that Stable ran a barbershop during the day and gave me the address.
He's a cut above the rest, you could say, with his barbershop.
Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich.
If I go snooping myself,
He concluded.
folks see I'm not trusting people. You could say a case of mistrust. No trust leads to no customers, something that you ought to keep in mind. Oh, hello, little kitty. I need to play it. Ow! No, which is where you come in. Ow!
Just like Captain Marvel. Just swallows him whole. Yeah. I raised an eyebrow at the cat as the cat devoured him. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him through the cigarette smoke. Something in his yarn was still twisted. He must have noticed my reticence because he said,
You know, I work closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim.
My uncle finally accepted Lewis's death. It was the only conclusion possible. He had taken his own life. He was the only officer who'd let me walk the beats or do more at crime scenes than comfort a widow. He'd been obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. I'd quit the SFPD and started my own practice, taking his ethos to heart. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? The answer is no. Game over.
The question isn't whether it's worth my time. The question is whether my time can get food for that cat. You should be asking me important questions.
Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wonder if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap.
Keep the scene note as a retainer. And don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. C note being short for cat.
Cat note. It's just a picture of a cat. It just says meow.
This is your retainer.
He turned down the hallway and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 with no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. Here, cat, eat this hundo. Eat this hundo. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whether I lacked clarity, a trip to Southern Coffee was usually the cure. And I think we'll take that trip next time.
Let's hope that you don't trip up this time.
Shut up, cat. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.